Here we go. Welcome to the Transform with Travel podcast, where we share stories of personal transformation and life lessons through our experiences of traveling and exploring the world. Travel is the ultimate accelerator for personal growth, and it can be the root catalyst for the pivots and plot twists we make in our lives. I'm your host, Kelly Tolliday, and it's my mission to inspire you to live life to its fullest, travel with an open mind and heart, and let the world show you a new perspective. I'm so grateful you're here with us today, so let's dive right in. Happy exploring. All right, here we go. Welcome, Miri.
Miri
Rodriguez.
Yay.
Welcome to the podcast, the Transform with Travel podcast. Thank you so much for joining this morning. We're so just grateful that you're sharing your time, sharing your story. So those listening, Miri and I have known each other for about a year and a half now.
Yeah.
We had a guest come to one of our mini retreats, and she was like, look, I love what you guys are doing. You have to meet my friend Miri. She owns a brand called Be Mindful, Be Happy. I think you guys would have so much in common and so much to share. And so I texted Miri, and within a week, we had a meeting at a local cafe, and here we are today. So much has blossomed and just really has come out of this beautiful relationship that between me, Chloe, and you. Miri came as a guest workshop expert teacher for us for our Greece retreat, and it was such a beautiful culmination of the end of the retreat. I think so many of our guests got so much out of it. So for those listening who don't know Miri Rodriguez, Miri is a global recognized storyteller, best-selling author of brand storytelling, and owner of Be Mindful, Be Happy. Miri brings 15 plus years of experience, expertise, valuable industry, and consulting insights matched with a lighthearted and authentic delivery and approach. Miri has earned several awards in digital marketing and customer experience and is ranked as a top in-demand speaker at leading industry conferences around the world. Her social advocacy and philanthropic work include volunteering to train social enterprise leaders in Africa, coaching students at Network for Teaching and Entrepreneurship in the U.S., and mentoring men and women to build their personal brand with empathy, passion, and purpose. She currently works at Microsoft as Senior Storyteller for Health and Public Sector Industries, and we are so grateful to have you here to be sharing this space.
Thank you, Kelly. I am so honored. Thank you for having me. This is amazing. I love your podcast, and I love what you're doing here, so thank you. The honor's mine.
Thank you so much. And I would love to just open up the podcast, just sharing a little bit more about your background. I know we're going to dive deep into the relaunch of your book, the second edition of your book, Brand Storytelling, and really go into, what that means for traveling and sharing stories and the root of the emotion of stories and what that means. This is what this podcast is all about, is sharing stories of personal transformation. And that is whether you're a corporate global brand or it's your own personal brand mission. It's something that I think a lot of us can really take away from. But first, a little bit about you, your background, where you're from, and what your mission is in this world.
Story? What's your
story? What's your brand story?
So I was born and raised in Venezuela, so in Caracas, Venezuela, and my parents are missionaries. So we, family of 5, we traveled all around Latin America, actually by car, picking up stories from people. My parents were preachers, and so they were storytellers in their own space. And I watched them all the time, and I was fascinated by understanding how stories are the tool to really connect hearts. When we sit down and we share what we're doing right now, I witnessed that power, and I was fascinated by it. I actually didn't know I was going to be doing this professionally once. In fact, I wanted to be a jet fighter pilot.
You changed gears a little bit
real
there.
quick. Well, I actually went through, when I came to the States, I did go 4 years into Air Force ROTC, and I ended up being the first female commander of my school.
Wow.
I earned 2 scholarships and full rides to actually go do this. So this was
God, I had no idea.
I know. A lot of people don't know that. So I did 3 internships, and I knew all the instruments. I could fly a plane by, theoretically, by the time I was a senior. But, life happens. And I actually heard crazy statistics, like only 5% of people, don't quote me on that, but some real small amount of people actually get to do in life what they signed up to do in college kind of thing,
Exactly.
So I switched gears and I went into communications. Back then, there was not a lot that you could do with that other than your regular kind of old PR journalism and marketing. And I didn't know that's what I wanted to do. I was just like, hey, let me just figure this out as I go. And that's been part of my story, just figuring it out. And I say yes a lot to things that I'm intuitively connected to, even if I don't yet know fully where it's going to end up. And it has always ended up in the right place because it's that intuition. And so as I navigated a career, I got into tech, which would have never, thought that's where it was all taking me. So I've been in tech for over 15 years. I won't date myself, but it's a long time. And I've been, navigating the space of comms. And of course, social media was born, digital media was born, and all these great tools that we have today that we're enjoying right now as we listen to this podcast. Nobody, you didn't go to school to podcast. You didn't go to school to do social media or even do storytelling. I ended up in a job that it's actually, it's called a storyteller. I am a storyteller. It's a content strategy role for a health and public services industry. So I basically work with agency and government to tell their stories of how Microsoft's technology is enabling services to our citizens. And it's fascinating. What I find really great about the entire storyline, my whole narrative, is that it's been embedded in this idea of stories and empathy, and really at the core how when we tell a story, we enable that empathy from us to other people and from people to us. And that to me is a really great currency for relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely want to touch on that, the storytelling relationship between each other and the empathy, because I think that's just like the ground zero of relationships while you're traveling.
Yeah.
But I want to back up a little bit and just discuss what it was like to travel with your parents and in such a unique way. You're traveling all around Latin America, and then you eventually immigrate over from Venezuela to the U.S. I'd love to hear that as a young child, what that was like for you.
It's interesting, and I was telling you backstage that I've been working deeper on my relationship. I have two sisters. I'm the middle child, and I absolutely live my middle child syndrome life.
Yeah.
All of it,
child.
100%. And we traveled by car, and there was first of all, we didn't have a lot of means. We were very slightly funded by a local church, and a lot of things were donated. So we didn't have a lot of toys. We didn't have definitely all the great things that our kids have today to travel by car. And so we used a lot of imagination, hours on end on the road, and we were without meaning to, we were very in tune with the environment. And so that really forced a great space of intuition and mindfulness. We didn't mean it that way, but we had to be, because there was, we woke up and it was a new town or a new place. We had to eat whatever they were giving us. So it really created core set of values for us as a family unit, and then in me to really love people and just contain people. There was, we sometimes a house, of rich people would take us in, and we would eat a great meal. Sometimes we literally we were in somebody's little shack and we slept on the floor. So there was this really great, rich space of the entirety of the human experience and the human life. And in all of it, at the center is the human people, right? It's us. And so we were very lucky to experience that really early in life. And that when, the missions eventually invited my parents to come to the States. So we came in I think it was 92, prior to 9/11, that we actually came in as legal immigrants. We still didn't speak English. We had no friends. We had no money. And so we did live a hard immigrant life when we first came in, but with that centered approach of human kindness and human life experience. My mom, she also is a very great hero in this space of giving back to people. So we were already creating a space to give back to other immigrants, for example, that had nothing. That was always been the theme. And so it really positioned me personally. I'm grateful for that, to really not base my core values on societal successes, but really the life and the human experience.
Your whole mission of telling stories with empathy, passion, and purpose, I mean, it seems like there's the origin story of it right there.
Pretty much.
You've been able to tell the stories of many different people's lives since you were a young child and take it in and observe, which I think would make you a very good traveler, just coming from your own experience. Where has this... I know you travel a lot for work, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But is that where the origin of your passion for traveling started, is just being on the road with your family?
Yes. My mom had gotten us a permission at school, some permit that we would just do a 4-day school thing. And so we would just go Monday through Thursday. So every every Wednesday night, we were already on the road to be somewhere already by the morning of Thursday, coming back on Sunday. Sometimes even just the whole week if we were traveling far because it was car and so many hours on the road. And I loved everything about it. I loved watching the sunrise in another place of the world. I loved eating somebody else's food. There's so much that you experience in just sitting with someone from a different life, a different culture. And we were really, our heart was very open to that. And today, when I travel with that intention. And yeah, I do travel for business, but I make this space every single time to connect at the human level, and it's so enriching.
When you moved from Caracas to the U.S., where in the U.S. did you move to?
Miami.
Okay.
We were actually in Hialeah the first year, and then eventually a year later we came to Fort Lauderdale. It was a big move in our minds because in Miami, at least, we had a Latin community.
Exactly.
Back then, I'm talking, 30 years ago, Fort Lauderdale, which is where we reside now, there was not a lot of Hispanics here at all. I mean, there's a city here called Plantation. There were plantations. It was like that's what it was. So there was a lot of green spaces, a lot of farms, and so in our minds it was like, wow, this is what America really looks like. Miami's not what America looks like. I'm like, this is real America. So we felt very isolated for a while. And it was a new lifestyle because we weren't traveling as much for a little while. I would say for my teenage years. So I got here when I was 12. So all the way through 20, it was kind of like living the American dream life. And I wasn't sure I liked it, actually.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. So in terms of, obviously, cultural differences, Miami to Caracas might be a little similar, just based on having that Latin community there. But when you moved to Fort Lauderdale, what were the stark contrasts for you?
Loneliness. We didn't have culture, we didn't have community, and one of the things that you find, especially in Latin America, is you grow up with a community, and so you have friends that you've always gone to school with. You have, it's neighborhood, and people help each other. Mothers take care of other kids, and they're not charging you, right? They're like, hey, leave the kid in my house. I'll take care of them, and they actually mother over the other kids, in the neighborhood, and so that was lost immediately, and we felt that sense of, and there was no community, there were no friends. We didn't speak the language, so it was just us, and it was hard. It was hard. I also, oddly enough, I don't know why I'm saying this, but I didn't understand the history of racism here in America. In Venezuela, we're all Venezuelan, and we have blacks, and we have everybody, and we're all just Venezuelan. So I was very shocked to find that stark contrast when I started to go to school, and I was also a victim of that, and I was just like, wow, this is new. We weren't prepared. We were not equipped to deal with something like that.
It's all on you as an immediate family, as opposed to having such an extended family around you.
Yeah, my dad has 9 sisters.
Wow.
Yeah, and they all have kids. So we have, I have
gosh.
30-something cousins, and we were close. But that's who we hung out with on my dad's side. And then my mom has 1 sister, and then she has a couple of older half brothers and sisters. She didn't grow up with them, but there was people always around. There was people always in our house, and our house was an open door. So that, when that went away, it was hard for all of us as a family.
I can't imagine being uprooted like that at such a fragile age of 12. A fragile age.
Don't do this. Don't try this at home.
And then getting thrown into, the U.S. school system and all the other things. Yeah. In your book, Brand Storytelling, you talk about your mom being such an epic storyteller. Yes. She was just a master of storytelling, really, and how I'm sure on your long road trips that was something that was woven in to your life and woven into who you are as a person. And in your book, you're specifically talking to brands and how they can build their own brand storytelling. And what you say in the book is to really drive home the point of why storytelling is so important. You mentioned that research confirms stories can be up to 22 times more memorable than other types of information.
That's right.
And that's not just important for marketing or communications, but also just important when you're talking to your kids, when you're talking to other adults, when you're talking to relationships and friendships.
Absolutely.
And that the brain produces dopamine, cortisol, endorphins, oxytocin, and really building that physical tension in the body of the cortisol versus the oxytocin, and that's how you're able to hook your audience.
Yes.
And if you can think of your audience as not just, your target audience for your brand, if you're a marketer or communicator, which is something we will get into in a little bit, but also your mom trying to keep the kids enticed and keep the kids following a certain moral compass through story.
Yes.
And I really loved you talking about that because I think, it's important for people to remember just how important these stories thread within our life. And this is why this whole podcast, why so many other podcasts are created, is to just be able to tell stories.
That's right.
And especially in the realm of traveling.
Yes.
You know, that's like the whole thing. You meet another friend in a hotel or a hostel and you're swapping stories and you become friends, or you get to experience a story that you'll tell later together. And I just think it's reading this book has been really eye-opening for me. One, I have my own brand that I think about. I also worked in marketing for 10 years prior, so you're speaking a lot of my own language. But I love that you talk about, and we can talk a little bit about this, but that brands need to be meaningful now. And I think especially as travelers, a lot of us are conscious of our eco impacts that we, especially as we're traveling on, you know, flights now, and just the general ecological impact that we have. And you talk about brands needing to be meaningful specifically because of generations like the millennials, Gen Z, Alpha. I think there's another one in there. Yeah.
Gen T is the next one. Yeah.
There's so many. Can you talk a little bit about that? About, you know, even if it's like a small scale brand owner listening right now, or if you're a consumer who are trying to be more conscious of the brands that you work with, like what does that mean for brands to be more meaningful?
Yeah, you know, I'll actually take the travel idea here because we all, you know, I love to travel and I do travel for business and for pleasure, both. I take a lot of workations and so I mix both. And, you know, sometimes we miss the opportunity to find stories. But if we intended, if we get on that plane or get on that bus and get in the car and we're like, today I'm going to go find a story. That is the meaning of the day. And I have done this. I mean, I've been to over 40 countries already. I plan on doing more. And every time the stories I find, they're not bombastic. You know, they're not like, I was in first class and what. No, it wasn't that. It was I entered a mosque and I was able to pray. When I didn't know I was supposed to pray because women are not supposed to enter a mosque. That really happened in Morocco.
Oh my gosh!
And so, you know, these are allegories that, you know, that build the human experience and it weaves us together, right? It's the exchange of culture. It's the exchange of moments. I remember I was in Israel, for example, and we were in Jerusalem, and there's an Arab quarter, so they have the city itself. It's a 1 square mile, and so they have different quarters. And so we went to the Arab quarter, and there was a market. And I didn't have a head cover. I lost it. I think I had lost mine. So I was like, I got to go buy a head cover. So I went into this little shop, mom and pop shop, and in a little hole in the wall, and they had these beautiful head covers. And I picked one. Could not speak the language. I had a tour guide, but he was Jewish, so he spoke Hebrew. He didn't speak Arab, and so he couldn't translate for me. So I went in by myself, and the woman came out, and I picked mine, and I was trying to put it on, and she saw me struggling. She was like, she just literally does not know how to do this. So, and she came up to me and just with her hands, you know, just grabbed my hands and taught me, right? And I will never forget that moment. She just looked in my eyes, and she, with compassion and with love, she just taught me how to put this on, how to wrap this head wrap, and I'll never forget that. And so that is the opportunity that people and brands have to be meaningful. I talk about moments where if a brand talks about being inclusive, how are you meaning to be inclusive? What moments are you finding in your day-to-day, whether you're a small brand and there's an exchange of an email and you were inclusive in that in some sort, or you were not and now you have a learning lesson, yeah? So there's so many different day-to-day moments that the universe kind of sprinkles towards us with the opportunity that we go, okay, can I have a human exchange experience here that will align to the core values of myself, of my brand?
Yeah. Oh my God. My brain's like on fire right now. I love that so much. I love this concept of finding the story within the day. We talk a lot about how to, you know, set an intention for your day, set an intention for your trip. Yeah. But that really rewrites that a lot.
It does.
How really to find the story. Mm-hmm. And it really opens you up to noticing all the small little moments in your day that it could be a whole story within itself, you 100%. Know, just a simple touch on the shoulder by somebody and like you said, that human interaction, that eye gaze or the compassionate look. Mm-hmm. You're making me think of all these moments in India where I was like, man, I wish I just like wrote down all of these and the details and the smells. And I love that. And also when you're talking about, like you said, let's say your brand mission is to be inclusive. And not just your own brand as a business, but what about your own personal brand?
That's right.
What are your personal core values, and how can I make sure that I'm living up to those in a day-to-day? I know in your book you talk about for a brand, it's not just enough to say that we want to show our humanity. You have to be human. You can't just like talk about it. You have to show it and really be that human aspect of the business, or show the humans of your business, which I think is really cool.
Yes.
What are some travel brands that are really doing this well, really showing and living and aligning to their brand story?
Yeah, I lived in Seattle for 3 years, but I always went out to Seattle because I've been in Microsoft for 11 years now. So, you get to travel to the headquarters a lot. And Alaska Airlines, I love Alaska as an airline. This is not an ad. They didn't pay me to say this. I really do love the brand. And I love it because they do intend to give you not just a experience that you deserve because you paid for it, but they do always try to go a little bit further, right? Whatever that means. And so each time I get on a plane with Alaska, there's always something that I'm like, wow, there's a little extra of the experience. And I did talk about it in the book. There was this one time when I was headed, it was such an early flight. It was like 5 a.m. coming out of Seattle into Texas. I think I was going to Texas. And, the sunrise was happening. It was not yet. It had not, the sun had not just yet came up. But at some point, I always get the window. And so the AP comes on, the pilot gets on, and he's like, "Hey, everyone, I'm sorry to wake you up if you're sleeping, but if you're on the left side of the plane, you might want to put your window up, to see Mount Rainier." And so, of course, Mount Rainier is just such an incredible sight to see. A lot of times we know it's there, but it's hidden by all the rain, so we don't get to see it. We get to see it a lot in the summer, which is beautiful. And so, but to see it from an airplane perspective, right, from that kind of sky view, I had never seen that. And so when I opened the window and I saw this incredible, it's just one of the most beautiful sights I have ever seen. I would have actually paid more to just take that route and see that. Like, that should be an eco tour kind of thing. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then I was like, wow, this brand really stands for the environment. They love the environment. They talk about that a lot. And the pilot was taking this, we were all sleeping, or the windows were shut, but he shared that he wanted to share that with us. He didn't take it all on his own and be like, wow, look at this. And he shared it. And so now it was a shared experience. And I was like, wow, how incredible. Everybody obviously took pictures. When I landed, I clearly posted all about it. And with a proud, hashtag that they use, I Fly Alaska, because they lived to the experience. It was something they didn't have to do, but they did. And they found the story. Right? And now the story was shared. And so now I have that story, and that's mine. And so I beyond finding the stories, what stories can you share with your customers that leave that, that connected experience that they won't forget? 22 times more memorable than any piece of information, any ad, any TikTok, right? 22 times to influence even bigger and better through a shared experience. That's incredible.
The idea that like you said, the pilot went out of his way, and this is something that you're continuing to share over and over again, and you're going to remember every single detail of that flight, or at least those first 30 minutes or whatever it was, more than all the thousands of flights that you've taken over your life. That makes me think of, we were traveling through Greece with my family, and traveling in the U.S. with a family is not easy anymore. They don't allow families to board first. There's no priority seating. It's really difficult as a family in the U.S. And we got to Greece, and Aegean Air, and now I should look up what their mission is now that I'm thinking about it, but Aegean Air is all about like ease of traveling through Greece, that they're your one-stop shop. And we get there, and there's a family check-in line specific for families.
That is so nice.
There's a family security line specific for families.
Love that.
And then they gave us a little kid like goodie bag basically when we got on the flight. It was like a 20-minute flight.
Amazing.
And I was like, wow, I will be an Aegean Air advocate for the rest of my life because of that experience of just going the extra step of aligning to what their core values were.
Yeah.
You talk a lot in the book about universal truths.
Yes.
And when you're aligning your story, your values, whatever that is, as a brander, as a consumer, as a traveler, that we want to align to how we want to make people feel. And this makes me think, how do I want me personally to make other people feel? And I love this idea of what a universal truth is, and I'll let you share from your perspective as well. But in the book, you say that It's a process called finding the universal truth. It's a truth we can all connect with, regardless of background, age, gender, religious, or political affiliation. In other words, a universal truth is an inclusive feeling that makes a story individually relatable to every person in your audience. And these things could be things like happiness or belonging or connectedness, community, whatever those feelings are, universally things that people are all searching for and seeking.
Yes.
And I think that's what makes traveling so compelling.
I agree.
I remember we were sitting our first night in India. We were in New Delhi, and we're at an Airbnb, like a apartment complex. And this woman in her 50s from New Jersey comes out, and a man probably in his 30s or 40s from Transylvania comes out.
Wow.
And they go, we're going to go to an Italian restaurant in New Delhi. Do you want to come with us?
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Let's
and
go.
we're sitting around the table, me and Sam in our 20s from Australia and from Florida, this woman in her 50s, actually probably closer to 60s from New Jersey, and this man from his 30s or 40s from Transylvania having a conversation at a four-top table at an Italian restaurant in New Delhi.
Amazing.
And had the most incredible conversation. It makes you realize it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what your background is, what you believe in, if you believe in God, if you believe in Allah, if you don't believe in anything. There's these universal truths that are keeping us all connected.
That's right.
And that's what you're saying is so powerful for brands to tap into.
I'm saying that, and I hope, and I'm encouraging brands to think about this in the way that I will tell every brand, including a personal brand, right? Look at your mission. And read your mission statement. I hope you have one. So start there if you don't create one. But look at your mission statement. Is there a feeling word there? I'll give the example of Microsoft. When Microsoft started, our mission, our mandate was to put a PC on every desk and every home. And it changed the world and it did what it was supposed to do. But, seven-ish years ago when Satya Nadella came on as CEO, he looked at that statement, he looked at that mandate, and he's like, we have an opportunity here to do something bigger, to be something bigger. And he set out to rewrite our mission, and it became to empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more. That word empower, you and I feel and know what it feels like to be empowered, no matter where we come from or not. And that's the feel. That's the universal truth. If I wake up every day and I get paid to empower, that's my job, right? How I do it is different, but my job and everybody else's job at Microsoft is to empower. How does that translate to your brand? What is the word that makes people feel something, that people align that connection? And that's really branding, is the association of that feeling, Disney, to be happy. So the different brands really aligning to the feeling, not just necessarily an entire mandate that you may not even remember. And so even traveling, Airbnb, you asked about brands, and I gave you the example of Alaska. Airbnb, being a travel company, during, I study brands throughout, to inform myself and have insights. And clearly I was studying travel brands during COVID, right, to see how they were reacting to this entire pandemic tragedy. And so they went out and used their website and digital tools to travel together while we were isolating. And so they were investing. They were not profiting of, but they were investing in people being alone and having a desire to travel because we were all in lockdown, and creating moments digitally that we could just join, going to Italy somewhere, going somewhere in the world. And now this turned into a multi-million-dollar community that they have been able to monetize 3 years later. They didn't intend it. What they intended was to live up to their brand. And of course, they were able to monetize it. So there's always, I say the universe rewards that because the intention is a good one to really create that universal truth that we can all connect to.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that brands and products and services exist to make money, right?
Yeah, right.
So it's okay that they made money off of it because they also provided such a universal truth to everyone. They provided a way that people were seeking a certain universal truth, which during the pandemic was belonging.
That's right.
They were able to provide that. And like you said, the universe rewarded that.
Absolutely.
And that's great. And I think that's exactly what I'm finding, at least as a consumer and also as a brand, that we're moving away from this like one-to-one. I have a product and then it makes profit. I have a product and it makes profit. And it's really moving into this people first, product second, profit, And it's like making sure that the people are at the forefront.
Yeah.
we talked about these universal truths and how all these people from different backgrounds and different religions and different areas of the world have come together and find these universal truths, which I think we find on retreats really well.
Oh, gosh.
And Miri was a guest and a workshop leader on our Greece retreat. I'd love to hear your experience of being in Greece, traveling on your own, coming to the retreat, leading the workshop.
Yeah,
and then you ended up coming
scared.
back.
And I'm coming back. It was interesting because on the professional side, I do a lot of workshops, and my main audience is tech. And so it's interesting because I get to, I've learned my audience, I love my audience, and I've created a language for my audience, clearly. So when I was invited, thank you for that invitation, I was excited, and I was like, well, I can definitely deliver this to the audience. However, this is an evolved audience. They're very much on their path and their way to awakening, and they're self-aware. Not to say that the tech audience is not, but they're more worried about the tech, right? And so I really took a long time to how to approach this in a way that felt connected and felt true to the audience. And I think that's the empathy that I talk about. We can, trends exist for a reason. They're trends, they're going to pass. But the empathy that we have to have is always how to apply our methodologies and our content and our strategies to specific audiences. And so I knew that even though the method had worked before, I had to tailor it. And I spent a lot of time, I'm not going to lie, just kind of thinking about this community that you have built, by the way, it's a beautiful community, a really caring community. And it's a hybrid local and digital. But people, we're still connected on a chat still. And people are like, I miss you back and happy birthday. So it is truly a community. We're not just, going to a nice place and then disengaging. And so I knew that about the community you have built, and I wanted to serve that community. So I took time to really understand how I could best do this. And for me, it was a pleasure to work through storytelling and using storytelling methods in a way that was raw and that I had applied to myself in my own space. And so I had done a couple self-mastery works that I had been working for me and for my friends. And, we took storytelling prompts to enable that conversation. These were things, as you know, of actually creating moments of thinking back to when, there's a child on the table or there's an inanimate object that you're going to talk to. These were prompts that I had used in different ways to create a moment where people could just pause and tell themselves a story. Sometimes we are good at telling stories, but not telling ourselves stories. We get scared because we have to open up and really dig deep, and we can't lie to ourselves, right? We can lie to people, we can't lie to ourselves. And so in the telling of stories, it's good to really open up a space for nonfiction where we can create and talk to ourselves, put that mirror, and really begin that healing where it needs to happen. And so I think it was thank you for the opportunity for me to really work on that. And I'm elevating that even more. I told you backstage, I think that was the catalyst for me to actually create this new methodology that I'm working on. I'm calling relationship mapping. It starts with the relationship with yourself, right? And I've done this because I do personal branding, so I always talk about learn yourself, like yourself, and love yourself. Conceptually sounds great, but really activating that, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. I can attest to the power of the workshop, the simplicity of the workshop, which is really where the power lies. And I mean, we had grown men in tears. I know. We had a lot of tissues being passed around. And it wasn't in this like everyone's sobbing and sad. It was just these revelations of how the simplicity of these journal prompts, of these story prompts that you gave us through the experience that you've had over 15 plus years of working in storytelling, how it can be so universally applied from big global corporate brands all the way down to your own personal mission, your own personal story.
Yes.
And it was, for everyone listening, it was on the last day of our Greece retreat. And it was just the beautiful culmination for everyone to tie in everything that they've observed about Greek culture, everything they've observed about themselves, all the different experiences that they were bringing into this retreat, and the way that they were able to kind of either let go of some things that they could let go of or be able to empower themselves to be able to integrate what they've learned into the next step of coming home.
Yes.
And so you were able to spend a couple more weeks in Greece after
I went
the
back
retreat.
to the same place.
Exactly.
You were amazing in choosing this place. First of all, it was my first time in Greece. I had never gone to Greece, and even though I've traveled so much, I had never paused in Greece. And so I was so happy, and I loved it so much. I ended up extending my trip 2 more weeks. And my husband came, my youngest son came, and we went back to Serapos, which is the place where we had the retreat. We stayed in the same resort. We will be back next year with you guys. You were very intentional, and it was very palpable that the space and the place and the people that infused that experience, it was a 360 experience. Even I'll share the snippet because I decided not to drink in Greece, and it was intuitively. I was absolutely planning to drink. I was like, it's Greece, Greek wine.
Yeah.
So I was mentally ready, and then when I landed, I was like, something's telling me not to. I don't know why. I think it was my own body. I was preparing for a surgery after, so maybe my body was telling me to pause. So I listened to myself. And we had a great bartender. Every time we woke up, he coffee and drinks and all of that. So he offered me a drink, and his name is Sergio. And I was like, no, thank you. I'm not drinking in this trip. And he goes, oh, you're not drinking? And I'm like, no. He's like, well, would you like a tonic? And I was like, a tonic? And then he goes on to tell me how he is a mixologist, and he's actually mixing things for health tonics. So every morning since, he made me a tonic. And like twice a day, he would make me a drink. And it was a very specific, like, this is for detoxing this is for your skin. I mean, I came out of that trip glowing. That. I was just like, everybody needs to do this. So it was a full body, spirit and soul experience from every angle. So well done to you and Chloe. You guys were amazing.
Well, everyone listening, we're going back to Serapos next year in 2024.
Are you inviting me?
Yeah, this is your official invitation.
Yay!
And for those who are really interested in working one-on-one and in a group setting with Miri, we're definitely working on something really exciting in 2024 at one of our retreats. So stay tuned for that. So you mentioned that you travel a lot for work.
I do.
And when we were trying to find a time that would suit our schedules, you're like, okay, well, here's my travel schedule. On this day, I'm going to be in Sweden. The next day, I'm going to be in Norway. And this day, I'm going to be in Seattle. And that's your life right now.
Yeah.
And I would love, for those listening,
yeah.
Miri is also the owner of Be Mindful, Be Happy.
Yes.
And I'd love for you to share a little bit about, that brand, what you sell, those products, the community that you've built there. And then also I'd love to hear, based on this journey that you've been on of awareness and elevating your consciousness and elevating health and mindfulness, how do you stay mindful and keep and elevate your health when you're traveling so much for work?
Yeah, mindfulness is a lifestyle, so it doesn't matter where you are physically. I didn't know that's what it was. I started intuitively, and I think I know intuition is what guides us all. It's that North Star within us. If we pause and we take the time to listen to ourselves, we get the answers. And so when I started traveling for work, specifically for Microsoft, I'm a mom. I have 2 kids. I'm a very involved mom, and I was very worried about, in fact, I think the first year I said no a lot. I was like, I'm not going to travel. My kids are young. And then I was like, how do I integrate this life? We did not have this digital ability to work remotely. Everybody was in the office. And it started with me making some concessions with my manager and saying, listen, if I'm going to travel somewhere, can I stay another day, bring my kids and have them enjoy a weekend, or my husband? And then it became this entire system that today I have where I as you saw my schedule, I actually schedule 6 months in advance. So I know where I'm going to be 6 months in advance. And then I send that schedule out to my community. First, my family and my family members. So my immediate family, my boys, my husband, they can join me wherever they want. They get first dibs, right? And then my best friends, so a group of my friends, I'm like, hey, I'll be here in these fun countries and these fun places. I do have to say I'm spoiled. I pick and choose where I'm going to be. So I'm not going to I don't know, the middle of Tennessee somewhere. I'm like going to Paris, right? So people want to travel with me. And so I tell them, yeah, I'm going to be here, and if you come join me, we'll be working from this location, and then we get to spend 2 more days. And so it's a one-on-one approach. So I'm never alone, and I'm creating memories with people that are special in my life. If my friends can't for some reason, then I actually extend the offer to my mentees. I mentor about 15 women at a time every 6-month cycle. And so I invite all of them, whoever can make it, to these locations. So I've had mentees join me as well. So it's a very enriching experience. And the mindfulness approach is I am being mindful about my time and my energy. That's very important to me as a mother, and in all the places that I serve, as a woman, as a worker, as as a friend, as a mentor. And so I'm mindful to create moments with the time that I am given to make those enriching experiences, and especially if it's a fun place, right? So it has worked really great. And it's funny because, now it's a thing. Like over the years, I've kind of modified it to a place where it's so much fun. And I look forward to the next 6 months and saying, hey, I'm going to be here. Who's coming? And, people are lined up. They're like, there's it's a whole thing.
You're like, pick me.
Yeah. Now I have to do like drawing of hats. And, like somebody picked Colombia. I'm like, 3 people picked Colombia. I have to wait. So it's been fun. It's been fun. So mindfulness is, to me, you talk about my brand, Be Mindful, Be Happy. That was actually, I bought it. I didn't found it. It was somebody in the UK who I connected with. And that's a whole other thing. I had a dream about it. And then she was already working to sell it to someone else. And I called her the week that she was going to contract and never met her. And I was like, listen, I had a dream. And then I saw the brand and my life symbol has always been the sun, and she had the sun. My company, my umbrella company, LLC, is called Mindful Leadership. And so she was Be Mindful, Be Happy. And it was just like, this all aligns. And so I called her and she's like, I heard your message, and she's like, I was scheduled to actually sell this to somebody else, and I wasn't feeling it. And
Wow.
so I know. So I acquired it in 2020, and I brought it to the U.S. And what it is mindfulness as a service. So yes, I have products, and they're all green, by the way, ethical, green, all the things. I make no margin on that, by the way, because it's not about that. But it is an intention to me. Be Mindful, Be Happy is this idea about having a mindful life, a mindful space, like mindful life, mindful business, and a mindful you. So we are elevating it more and more. I will in 2024, and I know we've been talking about this, integrate more partnerships and spend more time on it. I've been in the last 2.5 years dealing with medical processes, so I had to all in its time and all in the universe time. So I wasn't rushing anything. I just kind of bought it and maintained it, but I'm definitely going full force in 2024, and I'm excited for what's coming.
Yeah, I really love the idea of when you're talking about the mindfulness aspect is being mindful of your time. Because, you could do all the tips. You could take all the supplements and drink all the water and do all the walking during your flight, which is important. Like there's all these tips that you can do to stay mindful and stay healthy. But if you're go, and your cortisol and your adrenaline's getting spiked, like none of the green juices in the world are going to help you there. So you have to be mindful of how you do that. And I think what's really cool to hear is you're working for a massive tech company, and they're saying, we need you to fly here, here, and here. And you're saying, hold up. Yes, and
correct.
How can I get creative with this? And it seems like your mind is always looking for creative solutions to suit the needs of yourself and your family, and then also what's going to benefit the brand as well with Microsoft. So that's really cool to hear as a woman, because I'm sure being a woman in tech, being a Latina woman in tech is not the easiest path to have followed.
Has not. It's been, but it's interesting now. And for me personally, to look back at my trajectory as a woman in tech, so just to give it a statistic, now I do know this statistic, we represent less than 2% women in tech. So less than 2% as a gender. Then you add intersectionality to that. You add Latino, you add immigrant, you add mother. It's less than 1%, right? So I'm less than 1% in this entire industry, and it's not easy. Has not been easy. I always tell my mentees that we're the digital Rosa Parks. We're the Rosa Parks of the digital age, and we're on that bus. We're sitting there, we're paving the way for the next generation, and that's also what it's about. Mindfulness it's about legacy. You said something about how brands do. It's no longer about the one product and the one sale. That's transactional. I would like to call mindful business transgenerational. Right? We're not just transacting one-to-one and leaving it there and then it dies. We have an opportunity to open up a space where we leave generation after generation the legacy that our brand stands for, whether it's personal or business.
Yeah, absolutely. And you do talk about in the book how it's super important for brands to decide where they're going to stand on certain issues and whether they make that vocal or not, but at least for the internal stakeholders as well. Like, it's no longer okay for brands to just turn a blind eye to things. If it makes sense for your brand and if it's something that makes sense for your audience. Right. We need to be aware, and consumers are looking for brands who are willing to stand up for the things that they love or that they're passionate about. With Be Mindful, Be Happy, that's a brand, right? Let's talk a little bit about like the brand story. I know you said it's a service. It's not just you're selling beautiful meditation cushions or beautiful meditation eye pillows, which they do. Please go check them out. There's everyone who comes in there into interaction with them, they love them.
Yeah.
Beautiful T-shirts, mala beads, all the things like you said are
I owe you yours.
handcrafted.
I have not forgotten.
Oh, it's okay. But they're beautifully handcrafted. They're made ethically. You are so diligent about where they're coming from, who's making them, how they're being treated.
Yes.
Ethically,
Shipped.
ecologically, how they're being shipped. So ecologically, how they're being shipped.
Yes.
So that is something that is you talk about in your book.
Yeah.
From the packaging to the typography to the way that the package is being wrapped.
Yeah.
It is telling your brand story from
is.
end to end. So
It
tell
is.
us just a little bit
Yeah.
about Be Mindful, Be Happy
Yeah.
and that brand story from the physical product all the way to the ethos.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Actually, nobody's asked that before. So in 2020, before I thought about buying Be Mindful, Be Happy, I was a writer. I love to write, and so in my spare time, I'm writing, which is weird because I write for work as well. And I had it. We were all in lockdown, and everybody's just FaceTiming each other. We're all in our own spaces, and I had this idea of interviewing 12 of my close network of women friends. And I did, and the question I asked them was to tell me a secret they've never told anyone.
Ooh, I like that one.
Yeah. And I was absolutely not prepared for what came out after that.
Yikes.
Just not prepared. And nobody could have prepared me for this. And so they did.
Wow.
And these were, I cannot even begin to tell you. They were actually reliving the moments as they were telling me these stories. And there was laughter, there was crying, I just could not. I sat there and I was like, holy crap. And so I decided I wanted to honor those stories. And I had this idea of creating a storybook that looked like a storybook, but it's actually a lipstick line with 12 shades, each of them aligning to the stories.
Oh,
yeah. So
my
there's one story of this woman who had a very intense and passionate relationship with a modern day queen, like a real queen in today's world. And so the shade was nude, and so it's like that kind of thing. And I was just so excited about this. However, when I went to activate this idea, I was very disillusioned at the process for cosmetics, even green cosmetics. I went through so many phone calls and so many meetings, and not one company truly is ethical or green. And so I desisted of the idea. That was, that pause made me really think, well, if I ever do something that has a product and a service, which is what might Be Mindful, Be Happy is both, the products really need to live to the standards of what I am selling, that mindfulness approach. And so when we say green, that's mindful. We're being mindful to ourselves, to our bodies, to the planet. It's really mindfulness wrapped in the product. And so it's not just, here's your yoga equipment. It's there's an intention. In India, where my products come from, making sure the factories are not employing, underage personnel, making sure they're getting paid well, having those conversations. I never thought I would have to do that, but it was really important to me. And so when I found Be Mindful, Be Happy, and I, talked to the manufacturers, talked to the shipping companies and all in the fulfillment companies, I was very pleased to find that she'd done some of that groundwork, and I was elevating that. For me, the products are just a channel, and the services are another channel to inspire mindfulness with people, because it is, I call it mindfulness as a service. We service each other when we just pause for a moment and think through. It's not just doing good to the world, it's doing no harm. And that's a whole other strategy, right? Am I not doing harm to someone else or to the planet? I think that's bigger than just I'm doing good to the planet. Mm-hmm. And so it requires a mindful approach and a different set of activities to ensure that you're not harming yourself, someone else, the planet, our environment, and all the things. And so that's, for me, the story about Be Mindful, Be Happy is I was going through a personal medical as well. Like, I was diagnosed as a BRCA mutation gene person, and that basically threw me right after in 2021 into this process of five different surgeries. I've been through a total hysterectomy, double mastectomy. They did find cancer 0 in both breasts, reconstruction. And what I was given, and you mentioned it earlier, I was given the gift of not just life, but sitting in my bed and being. You know, I was just being. And it was like a sabbatical of 2.5 years where I was able to just sit with my thoughts, learn myself, explore my dark side, which I went there many times, come out of it, go back to it. And all of that, you said it so well and so eloquently. Sometimes we're like, hey, let's take the vitamins, let's do the outside work. But mindfulness starts with the inside work. And when you pause to go there, you see the world differently and you respond to things differently. And so I hope with Be Mindful, Be Happy that we can create a space for everyone who comes in touch with our brand to be inspired to do that, to go in. It's scary. I know. I've been there for longer than I wanted to be there. But when you come out of it, the deconstruction that happens, I guess my saying is everything has to be, in order for you to rebuild, everything else has to be destroyed. Mm-hmm. So we have to allow the destroying, and that means relationships with self, old paradigms, societal rules, religious paradigms that we were born with, and all the things, and then come out of it on the other end with doing no harm.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that story. I think what you mentioned about the deconstruction phase, a lot of people can relate to that. And in yoga and a lot of other religious texts, they talk about the 3 main phases of life, which are you weave throughout. It's not just one happens and then the other.
Yeah.
But there's deconstruction, maintenance, and building.
Okay.
But you can't have any sort of building if you haven't deconstructed. You can't build on something. Well, you can build on something existing, but
it's not going to be pure.
Exactly, or a strong foundation potentially.
That's right.
So that deconstruction phase is so important.
Yeah.
And the universal truth of community and belonging is what kind of holds us during that phase.
That.
And so I'm just so grateful for you sharing so much of your life, of your story, of like the wisdom of brand storytelling from a personal level. I think so many people can walk away with. And for me personally, finding the story of the day while I'm traveling is going to be something I make that my mission.
Good.
And I think it's such a good journal prompt. A lot of people like to bring a journal with them while they travel.
Yeah.
And then that's such a good way of just like noting down a little bit of, you don't have to write down every cafe you went to. You just write down like, what was the story of the day?
Story of the day.
And I think that's such a powerful tool for people to take with them. Okay. I like to finish these episodes with like rapid fire questions.
Okay,
that I haven't
go.
shared with you yet. So we'll see what happens.
No. Okay.
Number 1, if you could only go back to one country or one place in the world for the rest of your life, just one, where would it be and why?
Morocco. It would be Morocco because I really tuned into their culture. I love that first of all, the food is incredible. It's this mix, which I didn't know, of Arab and French. Like you get the best of both. And it's like, wow, it's like your palate goes crazy. And for me, it was such a foreign place to be. I was brought up Pentecostal Christian. That's actually when I had that experience of going into a mosque. And so it was such a culture shock, but it was a beautiful shock. It was almost like, here's a brand new world, and everyone tuned into me being the foreigner and not having, I wanted to go in with all the tools of awareness. I clearly did not. But everybody was so kind. And the spaces, the food, they take time to serve. They take time for tea. There's a lot of mindfulness in that country. And I love that it's also part of Africa. Africa has a special, special place in my heart. So it's almost like you get the Mediterranean and the Middle East in Africa, which is a beautiful, beautiful combination. I would live there, absolutely. I would live in Ifrane, the city. Wow. It's in the mountains. Yeah, it's beautiful.
So I've never been to Morocco, but we keep getting from people that want to do retreats in
so
Morocco. So maybe you got to come with us so you can be our travel guide.
Let's go.
Because we don't go places unless we've been there before.
Oh, well, I've been.
So
and you would love it.
Everyone, stay tuned for that one. Be Mindful, Be Happy, and Rising Nature Retreats collab there.
Let's go.
All right. Question number 2 is, what's number 1 on your bucket list right now?
Yeah. So I mentioned I'm from Venezuela. Venezuela. I have never been to Canaima. Canaima is one of the seven natural wonders of the world. It is the Angel Falls. If you're familiar with the movie Up, Disney's movie Up, it's actually, that's where they call it Paradise Falls, but it's a real place, and it's the longest, the biggest waterfall in the world.
Oh, wow.
It's nestled in the Amazon and the rivers of the Amazon. And so there, I had never, well, we never had the means, but now that I do, and after my medical processes, I did promise myself that if I came through this alive and well and, really good, I would go back to my country. I haven't been in many years, specifically to visit this place. What they do there is you fly right into the main city, and then you're greeted by local tribes, Yanomami tribes. I'm actually 30-something, like almost 40% indigenous Venezuelan.
Wow.
And so I would be connecting with them. They bring you in, they have a tour guide, and you walk. It's a trek of 8 days through the jungle. You're eating whatever they're feeding you. You're living with them. And then you end at the falls, and then they pick you up by helicopter. So it's a really immersive experience. And so that is on my bucket list next.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that. So there we go.
There
It's
we
on my
go.
bucket list now, too. Number 3 is
Yeah.
what's the biggest life lesson you've learned while traveling?
Oh, what a great, you got me. There's so many life lessons. I think it is finding stories. Full circle, when we endeavor to find stories, we are on the look. Our brain is almost like alert to go, what am I missing? What am I missing? Where's the story? Where's the story? And then you find so many things that may not be a story, but they're leading up to the story, almost clues. And to me, it's been everything from, I tasted a specific food. I interacted with someone. I've had so many moments where just recently I was in Austin, and I went to this kind of Mediterranean place. It was very good. And they had these cookies there, and I have a sweet tooth. And so I tell the cashier, I was like, are these fresh? And he's like, well, they're a day old. And I'm like, no, they're not fresh. So I'm not going to buy one. So he's like, well, they're fresh. I'm like, no, I like them like today's fresh.
Yeah,
and he's
like right out of the oven.
Yeah, I'm so spoiled. Well, my husband's a chef, right? So I sat down, and I'm having my food. And then he came up to me, and he brought me a cookie. And he's like, I think they're fresh. We made them yesterday. Why don't you try it? It's on us. Right? And I was like, okay. And so I tried it. It was actually very, very good. And I'm like, I went back and I was like, this is actually very good. And, they pride themselves in delivering fresh food. So I was like, there it is. There's the story of the brand extending themselves. He didn't have to do that, right? He could have just not skipped the whole thing.
He could have just not cared. And
not
moved
cared.
on.
But he was like, hey, I care that she thinks that this food is fresh because we live out the story of delivering fresh food. And so those are moments. Those are little stories. Those are brand stories. And so brand storytelling is the narrative that we're consistently weaving. We never run out of content when we're telling brand story, because our brand is evolving as we are. Our brand is, it's moving along navigating the landscape, and so as we are. And so I know our brands, and Be Mindful, Be Happy. It's a reflection of our own evolution at the core. And so as we evolve, our brand evolves, and then our audiences evolve. So,
love that.
yeah.
Okay. Now, last question is, if there was an aspiring explorer who just wanted to get out there but wasn't quite sure what to do or how to do it, what's one piece of advice you would give to them?
Yeah, safety, of course, mindful safety, and that's also important. So mindful travel is also thinking about not just, the checklist of safety. There's an awareness. I travel alone as a woman a lot, and so I have things in place that allow me to enjoy my environment, but also stay alert and stay safe. I am a mother. I'm a wife. I have people who love me, and I want to get, if they're not with me in a specific moment, I want to get home safe, right? And so safety is also safety of mind. A lot of times we get very anxious about the travel itself, and so we miss out on the travel because we're anxious about the travel. And so creating the end-to-end experience from a safety standpoint allows you to have a peace of mind and be in the mental space, and then allows you the space to actually enjoy the experience without the anxiety. So that to me it's number one.
That's like such a unique answer. I haven't gotten that yet.
Really?
And I think especially a lot of our listeners will be women who maybe their friends aren't quite ready to travel or their partners don't want to travel. So they're like, okay, I'll do it on my own.
Yeah.
And it's so important to think of that safety piece, like you said, not just the physical safety, but also keeping your minds, being able to be stable and serene and calm so you can take in all your surroundings and look at things objectively. So I think that was, honestly, I'm so happy you said that. 'Cause I haven't gotten that answer yet.
There you go.
So Miri, I would love to offer you this opportunity to share how guests can connect with you, how listeners can connect with you, and anything last little bits you want to share with the group.
Well, Kelly, thank you again for having me. This has been a very wonderful conversation and enlightening for me as well. I always learn from you. You have so much to share. So thank you for having me. Anybody can get in touch with me on my website, mirirod.com. That's MIRIROD.com. That's also my handle. So for social media, at Miri Rod, you'll find me. You can just Google me and then you'll find me. So I'm not too hard to find, even when I'm traveling. So and I do respond to everyone personally. I have in the past tried to get people to help me, and I'm like, no, I need, that's mindful to me. I do engage with people personally. So if you shoot me a note, it will be me answering. It will be me engaging. Give me a little time because sometimes it gets a little overwhelming, but I do connect with people, and that is part of my brand is relationships first. That to me it's my goal. So if you connect with me, I'll be glad to respond.
Amazing. And for anyone in the yoga, meditation, mindfulness space, check out Be Mindful, Be Happy for all their amazing products. And for anything in marketing, anyone in marketing and communications, or anyone just really looking to up-level their own personal brand, please go and get her book, Brand Storytelling. Put customers at the heart of your brand story.
And we'll see you in Serifos next year.
Yes, we'll see you
I'm
in
definitely
Greece.
going.
We'll see you in Morocco. We'll see you in
everywhere.
all the places. Thanks, Miri.
Thank you.